So to start this, we will be writing PB equals 2 pi. We use PB to find either the space of the length of one cycle, which means the space from dot 1 to dot 5, or to find the location of dot 5. So since we already have our b, which is the distance of one cycle, we'll plug that into the equation to get p3 over 5 equals 2 pi. Now we have to move 3 over 5 to the other side to multiply it to 2 pi. So to do this, we have to take the reciprocal. So we have p equals 2 pi over 1 times 5 over 3, which gets 10 pi over 3. Now we have to take our dot 1, which was given to us in the equation, negative 8 pi over 5, and add our 10 pi over 3. These need a common denominator, so we find that 5 times 3 is 15. So if we do cross multiplication, we get negative 24 pi over 15 plus 50 pi over 15, which equals to 26 pi over 15, which is the x coordinate point on our dot 5. So then we go over to our graph to graph the equation, and we find from our equation that 2 is the midpoint, and then we see that 9 is the space up and space down that the graph stretches. So we mark those on the graph, and then we would like to put on our graph the x location on our dot 1 and x location of our dot 5, and then graph the cosine wave, making sure, since there is no negative sign by the 9, we start at the top or above the x-axis is a helpful way to remember this, and go down all the way in graph until you get to the dot 5, and then make sure you write your coordinate points for both dot 1 and dot 5, and then you're done.
All right, next is number 2. First, we'd like to notice that it says sketch 2 cycles instead of 1 cycle. So first, I like to write PB equals 2 pi on my paper just so I don't forget it. And from the equation, you're going to grab the 3 that is to the right of the x, which is the b value. So PB equals 2 pi, you're going to plug 3 in for b. So you're going to have p times 3 equals 2 pi. In order to get rid of that 3, you're going to multiply by the reciprocal. And I like to put 2 over 1 just to see, multiplying across the top and across the bottom. It's easier for me to see. So after that, you're going to get p equals 2 pi over 3. And so now you have the distance between your dot 1 and your dot 5 for your first cycle. So then you're going to want to find the point on the graph actually where your dot 5 is. So you're going to take 2/7, which is a starting point of your dot 1. You're going to add it to the distance between dot 1 and dot 5, which is 2 pi over 3. But the denominators aren't the same, so you're going to multiply each side to get a common denominator. And then once you have a common denominator, you're going to add them across, and then you have 20 pi over 21 is your end of your first cycle. So after that, you're going to take the end of your first cycle, which is 20 pi over 21, and you're going to re-add your p value. So you're going to add 20 pi over 21 plus 2/3 pi. So after that, you're going to get the end of your second cycle, which is 34 pi. So now you have your first dot, which is 2 pi over 7, which is the opposite sign of what's in the equation. Your end of your first cycle, which is at 20 pi over 21, and the end of your second cycle, which is at 34 pi over 21. So you want to graph your y values on the graph, starting at -4, which is the midpoint of the graph. And you can see from the 3 all the way to the left of the equation on the very front that you go 3 up from -4 and then 3 down from -4. So you're going to have -4 in the middle, -1 is the top of your graph, and then -7 is the bottom of your graph. So you're going to graph your first point at 2 pi over 7 and -1, and cosine as a positive makes a big U shape all the way from the top, touching the bottom in the middle, and at the end of your second point.
All right, so now we have one for you guys to try. And whenever you're ready, you can pause the video and come back for the answer after you try it. So you can pause now. All right, so first you should have taken PB equals 2 pi, plugged in 8 over 3 equals 2 pi, and then figured out that it would have been 6 pi over 8, which equals or simplifies to 3 pi over 4. Then we take pi over 3, which we got from the equation, and add 3 pi over 4 to it, getting common denominators of 12, adding them together to get 13 pi over 12. Then we head over to graph it. We notice that -2 is the midpoint of the equation, and we have to add 6 up and then 6 down to get 4 and -8. And since we have a negative in front of the 6, we're going to be starting down to make an upside down U shape. So we're going to start with our dot 1 at pi over 3, comma -8. Draw that all the way to our dot 5, which would be 13 pi over 12, comma -8. And there you have it, your final equation, making sure that you do write your coordinate points for dot 1 and dot 5.
All right, and you guys have one more just to try on your own, so go ahead and pause the video now and give it a try. Okay, so just like one of the last ones, this is 2 cycles, which is similar to 1 cycle, except you have one more cycle to the right of it. So first thing I notice is that there's a negative in front of the cosine, so you're going to know that both u's are going to be facing down. So also you write PB equals 2 pi on your paper, just so you don't forget it. So once you do that, you can find the distance between dot 1 and dot 5 by plugging 3 over 7 in for B. So you have P times 3 over 7 equals 2 pi. So I always write a 1 underneath the 2 just so it looks easy to multiply across the top. So you multiply each side by the reciprocal. So you have P equals 2 pi times 7 over 1 times 3. So you have P equals 14 pi over 3. So now you know the distance between dot 1 and dot 5 of your first cycle. So now that you know the distance, you want to find where your dot 5 is. So you're going to take your dot 1, which you get from the equation, which is the opposite sign of 9 pi over 2. So your first dot is -9 pi over 2. So you're going to take that and you want to add 14 over 3 pi. So by doing that, you do not have a common denominator, so you need to multiply each side by the other denominator to find a common denominator. So you have -27 pi over 6 and 18 pi over 6. So that puts you right at pi over 6 for your dot 5 of your first cycle. So it's important to make sure that you put that on the right side of the y-axis because Reader will be going to grade that. Make sure it's on the right side. So after you have pi over 6, you want to add another cycle of 14 pi over 3 to make sure you have 2 whole cycles of your graph. So you're going to add pi over 6 plus 14 pi over 3. So by doing that, you also need a common denominator. So I just multiply the 6 times the 3. It's just easiest for me. So you'll get 3 pi over 18 plus 84 pi over 18. So that equals 87 pi over 18 for your dot 5 of your second cycle. So you're going to graph all those dots going across. You're going to have 3 dots. And then after that, you're going to go off the middle of each dot in the utmost position on the graph. You can see that it's +4. So that's going to be your middle. And then the 5 means that you go up 5 and then down 5. So 4 plus 5 is 9, and then 4 minus 5 is -1. So after graphing that, you're going to put all your points down, and then make sure your graph is upside down because it's negative, and graph your line, and then make sure that each coordinate point, your start and the very end of your graph is labeled. You don't need to label the dot 5 on cycle 1, only dot 1 on cycle 1 and dot 5 on cycle 2. All right, guys, hope you guys got it. Good luck.